Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Chupacabra Tutorials channel. I'm your host, Larry the Chupacabra, and today we're going to be doing the basic setup tutorial for getting started with OBS, also known as Open Broadcasting Software. And OBS is a software that you'll be using if you want to record or stream your gameplay, and it's really nice because it's feature-rich and it's also for the low price of absolutely free because it's an open source piece of technology. So once you've got it downloaded and installed and you open it and double click it, it'll open up with a window like this. And basically up here is your settings tabs. This is your preview window. So what you see here in this window is what will be recorded or streamed when you click on one of these buttons over here later. And down here you have the different scenes, which are made up of different sources for which you will pull the game's visuals, the audio, and everything. And with these two tools, you will mix and match and put together a very compelling presentation for your viewers. Most of what you'll be doing to set up OBS is in the settings. So if you just click on the settings, a new box will open that has a bunch of different tabs, each full of a lot of technical jargon. Now, the first tab is your basic general settings, things like notifications, language, and whether or not you want to have a light theme or a dark theme. I think I'll switch it to a dark theme just for kicks, even though my Premiere Pro that I'm using as a background here is also dark. And the rest of these settings are things like confirmations when you start streams, hide your cursor as it appears over this projected area, and, enable the system tray icon, which if you open up the corner system tray, you'll see that OBS Studio shows up down here. These are pretty much just like system thingamaboopers. You can just play with these at your leisure. Snap different sources to the edge of the screen just makes it easier to line things up, etc., etc. The next thing that we'll be setting up is the streaming tab. Now, the streaming tab is only full of the information that OBS needs in order to connect to your streaming service of choice. Up here at the stream type, you can say either regular streaming services, which will allow you to directly log in to places like Twitch, YouTube, and Hitbox. And if I select Twitch, all I have to do is pop in the stream key, select the closest ingest server to my location, and I'm in Colorado, so it's either going to be like one of these here in California, so I'll probably pick San Jose just because I'm feeling edgy. And if you don't have access to one of these services, or you want to use like a third party that isn't listed here, you can just go down to Custom Streaming Service, enter the URL of the server that they use, and all of the streaming services make their ingest server URLs available to you, depending on what type of software you end up using. Then you just pop in your stream key, and you can also activate the use authentication to log in with your credentials. It really depends on the streaming platform, and if they have certain requirements, they will actually walk you through what those are. For most people, you'll probably just want the streaming services in either like Twitch, YouTube, or Hitbox TV. After that, we have the output setting. So the output is what you will use to determine your streaming and recording settings. So in this particular case, when the program talks about output, it usually tends to mean recording, but be very careful, it might also mean what your streaming settings are. So the first set of settings that you'll encounter when you're in the output mode is the simple output mode. This means that one set of settings are going to cover your needs for both streaming and recording. And for the most part, 90% of people probably don't need to go past this screen. For the more advanced settings, I'll be doing a secondary tutorial that goes through all of these crazy advanced sounding things, which can be a little bit out of control at times. So we're just going to keep it simple for this basic OBS setup tutorial. So there's two windows here, and they both have to do with both recording and streaming. So we'll start with recording, because a lot of people like to start out recording, because not everybody has a big fancy internet connection. And the first thing you're going to want to do is tell it where you want your videos to be saved. I'm going to go into, let's see, I'm going to go to my space down here. I'm going to go to video output, and actually not video output. I've got a recording footage folder, and then I'm going to make like an OBS simple folder for all of my simple OBS recordings, since I won't be using it for a lot of those things. And then you can set it so that it generates a file name without spaces in the name if you really want. And then down here it says recording format MP4. You can record using OBS in a number of file formats, but for the most part, the file format that you want and will be most readily usable by every program that you encounter is going to be the MP4 format, also known as H.264. MOV is an Apple format, MKV is a Windows format. I forget what TS and this one are. And then also FLV is a Flash video, which was pioneered by Adobe for the early days of the internet because it was a hyper-compressed video type. But for the most part, the most readily available one that everything uses is the MP4. And then down here you can set up a custom muxer setting, but only do that if you know what that is and somebody explains it to you. You can look that up online. It's not really something you need to worry about for this video. So the other thing you should notice is recording quality is set to the same as the stream source. And what this means is all videos run off of something called a video bitrate. A video bitrate basically just means that it's the size of the transfer pipe that all the data runs through, and the bigger the pipe, the more quality it can record. And for most people, if you were going to stream, you'd want it set at about 3500, which is 3.5 megabits per second, which is on the kind of the limit to what Twitch will allow you to stream at before they start to get mad at you and you start to get buffered a lot. So that's what you do for streaming, and if you were recording locally, you'd want to set it at something like between 25,000 to maybe 45,000. And that's 45 megabits per second. Now, if you want to both stream and record and you don't want to change this setting, you can go down here and you can say, I want to do recording format to be high quality, and that'll just say I want the preference of high quality. It'll be a high bit rate, and that's all you really have to do. You can also say like a lossless file, which is going to be monstrous sized and is going to require a bit extra processing power on the part of your computer. But for the most part, you could probably do like high quality or indistinguishable quality, and that's probably what's going to keep you just fine. Now, for the encoder for streaming, you have two options. You can use the software, which I recommend, which basically means your computer's going to use your CPU to process and record your video and send it to Twitch. It's a little bit more stable and works a bit better. If you absolutely have to, you can use your hardware encoder, which is going to use the brain that's on your graphics card to make a duplicate of the video that you see on your screen and just send it on up to Twitch. It doesn't work quite as well, and it tends to be a little bit artifacty and glitchy looking, depending on your computer. So I wouldn't always trust that, but it's worth a shot, especially because it's going to improve your overall graphics performance tremendously while you record and do stuff. And if you find yourself lagging at all while you do this recording or streaming, you can click on Enable Advanced Encoder Settings, and enforce streaming service bitrate limits you can leave on. And then encoder preset you want to set to high performance, and that's going to emphasize your performance of your computer over the quality of your video, because when it goes up onto the web, it's going to have the shit compressed out of it anyway, so there's really no reason for you to worry too much about eking out every last little bit of quality, because it's going to get gutted at some point anyway. But I've got a pretty strong rig, so I'm actually going to leave that disabled. Down here in recording, you have some similar options. You can use software, or you can use the software low CPU usage preset to record. But a preset that's very fast and very efficient, especially for recording, which is what it's the best for, is the hardware encoder. In my case, I've got the NVIDIA platform, so my encoder is NVENC. If you're on an AMD system, that might be something a little bit different. And in the advanced tutorial, I will tell you how to set that up in the advanced settings over here for both like a separate streaming profile and a recording profile and an audio profile to make sure that you understand how that works so that you can get the absolute best quality out of your videos without skimping on performance. And then the last thing is the audio quality. Basically, bitrate, higher the number, better the quality. So with audio takes up very little space in video recording, so just jack that up in any video recording software of your choice as high as it will go. It usually doesn't go beyond 512, but I've seen some of them go up to almost 1,000 for kilobits per second. Then after that, we will go to your audio presets, and what this is you just want to tell OBS exactly what audio devices you want it to use so it doesn't get confused and record dead silence or something else and screw up your videos. So for the hertz rate, again, higher the number, the better the quality. Channel, you want stereo, and that means that you've got audio coming in each side of your headphones. Otherwise, you'd only have one channel split between them that sounds flat, and you can't hear things going on 360 degrees around like your headset, which makes it so that when you watch different games, people won't know what's going on the screen the same way that you do while you're playing the game. Now down here, desktop audio device is whatever you're listening to when you play the game. So if it's your headset, you want to set it as your headset. In my case, I've got a G35 gaming headset. And then for the desktop audio device 2, I do a multiple output or multiple audio track output recording style. So I have a secondary plug in my computer that I use to separate out other people's audio that I'm playing with, but I'll get into that in the advanced tutorial. And then, of course, your microphone that you're using, just select whatever that is. I'm using a Blue Yeti stereo microphone. I was about to say microscope for some reason. And then you can leave anything that you don't need disabled so it doesn't try to record extra stuff. Then down here, OBS lets you do things like activate like a push-to-talk key for your video capture device, your mic, your desktop audio, or whatever. And what that means is only when you press down that button will OBS record any of that audio from that particular device. And when it talks about video capture device, it means things like webcams. And mic, obviously it means your microphone, and desktop audio, it's from whatever you hear from your computer. You can set those up. You can set the mute delay, so after you pull up on the key, it'll wait so many milliseconds before muting that audio source again, etc., etc. And these different push-to-talks are handled here in the key bindings or the hotkeys menu, where you can set those things as you please. I need to change these because I edited these start and stop settings for the key bindings a long time ago and never really used them. Usually when I record, I just tab out and I tell it to record. So the last tab that you really need to pay attention to is the video tab. This controls the size of the video that will be recorded and streamed at any given point. So basically what you're seeing is this is the base canvas resolution of my computer. It's 1920 by 1080. And if for whatever reason, because I'm streaming and I have a smaller connection, so I need to make my video smaller, I can downscale this to a standard size like 1280 by 720 or something even smaller. Or I can just leave it as it is because I want it to record and stream at the full quality. And if you do decide to downscale it to a smaller size, you have to worry about this little filter here. This filter is going to put together like an algorithm and make it look over and recompress your video to make it smaller and better looking, and it comes in 3 forms. Bilinear is the quickest one that takes the least amount of resources to do, and it looks a little grainy and a little blurry. Bicubic is in the middle. It's not too bad on performance, and it looks pretty good, and Langzos, or however you pronounce that, is the best. It resamples everything 32 times with all like the pixels and regions in an image, and a video is basically just a whole shitload of images put together with an audio track. And this one's the best, but it also can eat your memory and your CPU performance depending on your computer. If you're just barely on the edge of performance, you might want to leave it at bilinear. For my money, I would just leave it at bicubic or Langzos. And then, of course, the ever-present and ever-argued common frame rate value. So you can actually set this at a weird frame rate value, like an integer or something. But basically, the way that this works is just select your frame rate, either 30 or 60, and you can actually unlock OBS to go further than that, but I don't really have a reason to do that, so I don't remember what it is. We might cover that in the advanced tutorial. But basically, the way that this works is if your computer is getting really stellar performance, and you're playing at or above 60 FPS at any given moment, go ahead and leave that at 60. You won't have to worry about it. If you're seeing less than 60 pretty regularly, leave it at 30. I know you want to be a part of the PC master race and be a sweet, awesome dude bro, or a lady bro. But the thing is, if you're not getting 60, it'll look really choppy and shitty if you're trying to record at 60 instead of 30. And basically, just because you set it to 60 doesn't mean it's going to force it to record 60. It just means it can record up to 60, and then everything above 60 gets thrown away. Same with 30. It'll record up to 30, and everything under that will get thrown away. For my money, I get really great frame rate, so I'm actually going to leave it at 60. And then the only other tab is the Advanced tab. This controls things like the process priority on your computer, what renderer you use to record things. In this case, you always want it to be Direct3D 11, which is DirectX. And if you have more than one video adapter, you want to click on this to select the most powerful one that you have on your computer. And a video adapter is just your graphics card. Because the theme with OBS is while it is free, it's also highly technical. So you actually have to do a bit of reading and a bit of research to actually understand every last component. I have a long history in video work. I've directed music videos and a couple other things. So I have a decent understanding of video terminology and how renderers and recorders work and encoders. So I have a little bit of a leg up, but even some of this stuff is stuff that I had to look up because it's obscure stuff that only programmers tend to need to know. So basically, most of the stuff, don't mess with it because it'll fuck up your computer's color. It'll make things look weird when you record, which is mostly these color space and color range stuff. Actually, you could change the YUV color range to full. That'll make things look better. And then we're going to click OK after I go back to my output and switch it back to advanced. And switch my encoder back to, whoops. Where's my output? Back to recording. Switch me back to MP4. And then encoder, invanc. Perfect. Change this to QRF. There we go. So now that that's all done, I'll go over that stuff that I just fiddled with in the advanced tutorial. But now we actually have to set up and do a test recording. So what I've done is, let me delete this extra scene here. Let's create a new scene, and we'll call this the tutorial scene. And different scenes contain different objects that you can use to record from. Like, one can include just your webcam for doing vlogs, and then one can include like your webcam and gameplay, or one can include just gameplay. And you can click between them in order to, as you see here, activate different objects on the screen. So what I'm going to do is, first thing I'm going to do is, I have in the background, I've got Dark Souls 2 or 3 running. So let's go to add a source, and the primary bread and butter is a game capture source. This will directly capture any full screen application, or generally any application automatically after you set it up. So I'll just click in here, and sometimes it'll show up. This isn't currently full screen, so it might be ignoring it. So in that case, I'm going to go to capture a specific window, and I'm going to tell it to capture Dark Souls 3. And there you have it. And because I'm playing it windowed to demonstrate this for you without causing a glitch in my recording, here you can see it, and here is the actual game. And I'm running a recorder on top of a recorder to demonstrate this, so it might be slightly laggy, but for the most part, with my settings, especially if you use the envanc built-in encoder, none of your recordings should lag that much. So here's my game capture, and if you want to add a video source like a webcam, you'd use a video capture device. And there's a whole bunch of different sources. You can directly capture just an audio device for an input like a microphone. You can just capture an audio output, which is part of your desktop audio. You can capture something from your browser. You can capture your display, which is your monitor, game capture, just an image as a background or something, a slideshow, a media source, and this can be a video or something. You can capture another scene, so you can tie different scenes together. You can add your own text, VLC media player as a source, a video capture device, which can be your webcam or some other camera that you've got plugged in for a live feed to your computer, window capture, which will capture a program's window, and a bunch of text-free type thing that you don't have to worry about because it's old and out of date. So I've got this open. I don't really need to add my video capture device, but I could just to show you guys. I don't think it'll currently work because it's been having an opinion. It's glowing blue, but it doesn't want to activate. So I'm actually just going to delete that. And to start recording, you can either hit your hotkey or you can press start streaming or start recording. I'll just click start recording. And then I can just go hoopy-doopy-doo, diddling around. And as you can see, I'm not really seeing any frame drops. I'm just kind of horsing around. And then once I'm done, I just tab out. I can just hit stop recording. And that video is ready to be previewed. And that is more or less how you do the basic setups for OBS. If you have any questions about any of those settings, feel free to drop that in the video description. I understand that there's a lot of information to dig through all at once, which is why I'm going to kind of break up the information into multiple pieces so that people can get a more well-rounded look at all of different components. And then once you're fairly familiar with the basic building blocks, you can look about transitioning scenes using like fancy things like cuts or fades so that you can have like an advanced multi-scene stream where you cut from a bunch of people doing something stupid in your living room to like murdering things in Bloodborne. And that'll be it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I've been your host, Larry the Chupacabra. Hope you have found this useful for getting started in setting up OBS Studio, which is the latest version now. And if you have any questions, again, throw those in the comments. I'm very versed in the software at this point, so I can answer all of your stuff pretty well. And anything else, I can help you either Google or tell you the right place to get the information, which is usually the OBS help forums. So if it's a really complicated question, maybe just start there first because they have a lot of great resources for troubleshooting what might be wrong with your computer or your OBS installation. Sometimes it's a bit of both. And until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe. And, of course, suggest topics for future tutorial videos. And I'll catch you guys and gals next time. Toodles, everybody, and have a good one.